Check it out.
What's the purpose of satire? It's a tool used to expose and criticize the foolishness and corruption of an individual or society by using humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule. It's intended to improve humanity by criticizing its foils and foibles. In Bamboozle, what's being criticized is niggas or niggers, depending on your convictions. Check it out. If you're new to the channel, like and subscribe to become a hood figure. That way you can recommend what movies we should do next. But for now, check it out. What's it about? The role media plays in balancing race and ratings. How they're willing to bamboozle you, your image, and culture just to make a little money. Also, how we bamboozle ourselves. Check it out. Characters. Man Ray and his partner Womack are street performers, grinding to make ends meet. Man Ray is the youngest of the duo, providing most of the action for their performances. He's a tap dancer by trade who's one step away from being homeless, so he's willing to do anything to survive. The character Man Ray adopts is based on Mantan Moreland, a vaudeville minstrel artist whose catchphrase was, "Feet don't fail me now." Womack is the other half of the duo. Womack is like Man Ray's mentor, manager, and partner in performances. He's the motivating force that leads them to Delacroix. Like Man Ray, he too takes on a self-deprecating, albeit stage persona of Sleep and Eat, which was another vaudeville character played by Willie Best. Womack, unlike Man Ray, is genuinely hesitant at first to the ideas of Delacroix, like one jumping into Double Dutch, but agrees for the opportunity despite his conscience and experience. Pierre Delacroix, or Peerless Dalton, is a brother trapped in a sort of purgatory. So refined that black people don't like him because he feels he's above them, and whites don't feel him because he's almost a caricature of them. He just wants to see black people on TV that look and act like pre-Trump Republicans. Too bad for him, he doesn't recognize what being the only black executive means. Similar to the Mau Mau's, Delacroix fights for black people, but from the inside of media. However, his positive shows get low ratings, provoking him to produce flagrantly offensive ones that the network should find distasteful, but they love and demand more, prompting him to do as many do and sell out. Delacroix's real issue is, although he rallies against the network, he subliminally seeks their approval.
For at least a week.
Thomas Dunwitty is the executive who's in charge of Delacroix. His affinity for black culture seems fetish-like. He's got a black wife, loves black culture, and feels compelled to measure blackness despite being unqualified. His audacity spawns from unchecked whiteness. As a network producer, he in theory dictates how the masses sees what acceptable blackness is. It's people like him who greenlight shows that make us look bad, opting to often fetishize rather than normalize their understanding of what blackness is. Sloane Hopkins, like Womack, is the torn conscience of the film. She's getting money along with the rest of them profiting off these shameful acts. She's not naive like the talent networks hire. She knows that the hit show is poison, and eventually she turns against it. Her problem was, even though she initially objected, she still went along with it. She shows us how playing both sides causes you to lose on both of them. Honeycutt shows us it's always going to be someone willing to do what you want. He in no way has any conflictions with coning it up. I'd be disappointed as a black man, but Honeycutt is a nigga, so you gotta adjust your expectations. The Mau Mau embody the type of buffoonery, I'm ashamed to say, essentially seen in hip-hop. They're bamboozled with contradictions. They're basically modern-day minstrel shows themselves. Despite their so-called wokeness, the Mau Mau's are just as destructive as the shows Womack and Man Ray puts on, promoting purposeless violence to perpetrate power and progress. Know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying? Know what I'm saying? Check it out.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean?
Check it out. What I see in college, I had a professor that taught us that the acronym for media stood for multi-ethnic destruction in America. Bamboozle is Spike Lee's proof of that point. While this movie may trigger some, it's worth it for the purpose of its objective, which is to get you to think about the power of images, not just in terms of race, but how imagery is used and what type of social impact it has on us. You ever wonder what if Chappelle never left the Chappelle show? If he just embraced being the satirical token, being cool with producers laughing at him instead of laughing with him, how would that have turned out? Dave, like Delacroix, was forced to consider if they was making fun of these stereotypes or reinforcing them. Choose wrong and you got bamboozled. In some ways, Bamboozle is a film study on the compromised integrity of black Americans, how assimilating into the American melting pot means degrading yourself and or culture, how when done boldly and correctly for commerce is called groundbreaking. In this film, essentially what's being sold is blackness. We're watching how blackness itself becomes a commodity or pop culture gimmick. Check it out. Alright, lessons. This whole movie is a fucking lesson. This whole movie is a lesson in media. Instead of the usual lessons from the screenplay, I'd rather just show you what media training tactics the film tells us to look out for. Brought to you by Lois Griffin's real-life doppelganger. 1. Watch out for people who try to relate to your pain by associating with your struggle.
Why are you here?
Good question.
2. Watch out for people that offend and then tell you how to feel about the offense.
Which is, lighten up, man, right? This is about fun.
3. Just because it's black owned or blacks are shown doesn't mean it's socially acceptable by black people.
Very important.
4. The authority on who determines what's black shouldn't come from a Caucasian caucus or any other non-black group for that matter.
But we are certainly not saying anything about the entire African American community.
5. Watch out for people who disguise disrespect as satire. Satire only works if the audience understands the satirical premise. Without this type of understanding, you end up laughing at the premise instead of with it. 6. Watch out for smiling snakes.
Show them pearly whites.
7. Be aware of cultural appropriation from those that invoke the spirit of your leaders to further their gains.
You know, use the word community.
8. Watch out for self-hating black people, for they are often used as puppets for the media, and often are, filling two roles, one as the token, the other as co-conspirator.
Because you're black.
9. Watch out for those that don't see the diversity of Negroes, from African Americans to blacks. I'm talking about ADOS, Caribbeans to Creole. The diaspora is variant. Check it out. When you see it, Bamboozle reminds us how maybe more than any other group, black people have had their image and culture corroded the most in pursuits of notoriety to support themselves. You may be asking yourself, who's being bamboozled in the film? And to that I would submit, all of us. Delacroix thinking he could rage against the machine and win, believing the media wouldn't approve an over-the-top racist and foul program. Dunwitty and thinking he knows black people more than we know ourselves. Man Ray and Walmack for compromising their cultural consciousness. Sloan for her silent complacency. The Mounds with their oxymoronic wokeness. Even us as audience members, we were hoodwinked into applauding racist imagery. Here's the thing, I think Delacroix and Dunwitty are two sides of the same coin. They both aspire to be what the other is. Besides control, what signifiers reflect Dunwitty's ethnicity? For all intensive purposes, he's no different than Rachel Dolezal. Delacroix ain't no better. Look at his parents. He comes from a proud black family. His mother's disappointment in him isn't superficial because he sold out. It was because, like the game of Othello behind her, he's chosen to flip into whiteness. Dunwilly and Delacroix both waited too long to consider when does artistic representation cocoon it. Stop being a creative force and become something more destructive. But why even use creative liberty to degrade yourself? Well, the movie instigates the notion that the media, white people, is so threatened by black people on TV that they'll only watch them being funny. Is this why I don't have more views? Shouts out to Preem. How far you're willing to take self-abatement probably depends on your financial situation or your love for the culture. Same time, be warned. Sloan got fired for attempting to raise the consciousness of Mantan, ignoring the unwritten threat we all know about. This industry is exploitive. Get in the way of its interests and you will be removed. Like doughboys say. I don't know when.
Somebody might try to smoke me.
We're all not poor righteous teachers because we choose to be. That's the cost. Or risk of doing it for the culture, you know? So, check it out. Alright, closing. Satire doesn't mean false. If anything, it's hyperbole of reality. The pains that black entertainers had to endure wasn't a choice. The importance of this film is that of Schindler's List for black entertainers, serving as a painful benchmark or reminder of what cannot be allowed. It's always going to be Honeycutts out there, for there's a fool born every minute. Nonetheless, the moral of selling out is it's always worth it until it isn't. If you wouldn't doom the world to save yourself, then you shouldn't have a problem not selling out your own people for profit. I don't know. Maybe I'm naive, not having historical amnesia. As you see from this movie, the black experience in the film industry has been precarious at best. My favorite rapper has a line that goes, "Hove did that, so hopefully you ain't gotta go through that." That simple message is how I think Spike wanted us to feel about subjugating ourselves as mockeries for Hollywood. Those that came before us were regulated to dehumanizing themselves. Therefore, it should rarely be an option for us. But if you do, keep in mind what James Baldwin once said. People pay for what they do, and still more what they have allowed themselves to become. And they pay for it very simply by the lives they live. I'm Fox. This is Check It Out. And I appreciate you whether you're bamboozled or not. Peep. These reviews are made possible with contribution from OGs and hood figures like you. Thank you. It's appreciated in a real way. If you like this channel and would like to see it grow, you too can support it by donating to our Cash App, $IamFox2X's, or our Patreon at Check It Out Hood Reviews. Now it's time for them extras. Spike played too much. That acceptance speech Delacroix gave was poking fun of Ben Raines at the 1998 Golden Globe Awards. What's crazy is Joe Diane Buddy was present there too. Like I said, Spike played too much, man.
To you, Mr. Jack Lemmon. Sure.
Peep how the more Delacroix sold out, the more of those spooky collectibles started showing up in his office. Did y'all see that? Did y'all notice the game Othello behind Delacroix's mother? It's a game of flipping black pieces into white pieces and vice versa. It's also a Shakespearean play about how Othello, a black man, loves Desdemona, a white woman, excessively, but not wisely. Kind of like Delacroix's relationship with the network. He loves it excessively, but not correctly or wisely. Mantan and Sleep and Eat were actual vaudeville characters, played by vaudeville actors Mantan Moreland and Willie Best. When people bring up old cartoons and how they was racist, it's because the cartoons were basically imitating those two and others like them. Check it out, compare for yourself. The Mau Mau's take their name from an aggressive grassroots African resistant movement that fought against the British in Kenya from 1950 to 1960 over how white settlers took their land. The bomb is basically for Loco. Tommy Hilfiger got what he got from this movie because his rumored stance on black people. Pretty much he ain't want us wearing his stuff. Allegedly. Questions. At what point does the spectacle of black style, drip, vibe, or whatever you want to call it, no matter how defiant or self-affirming it feels, at what point does it become a form of minstrel shows? Is it just a feeling, or what do you think? Does the American media have an affection for the degradation of black people and minorities? I'm just asking, what do you think? Do you think it's true the networks would rather see black people cooning and buffooning rather than seeing them in like deep character-driven stories? I don't know. What do you think? Which would you prefer? The Alabama Porch Monkeys were the Roots. Yeah, I knew that, right? This might be a reach, but was Dunwoody like a pseudonym for Dumb Whitey? I'm just asking. I don't know these things, man. Let me know of any lessons you feel I might have missed. And before I let you go, to provide y'all hood figures with more sophisticated hood content, some of y'all might have heard of my brother. He do comedy and music the way I go hard on these music and reviews. We're hooking up soon to talk that talk, man. Just come and listen, man. Come help us figure out a name for this thing that we finna do. Come help us figure out a name for this thing we trying to do, man. He's sincere. I'm Fox. Just come listen, check it out. I got links in the description in the bottom, man. I ain't gonna front. My brother kinda dope on that music shit. But yeah, links in the bottom, man. Appreciate y'all, man. Only the real ones made it up to this point. And I appreciate you for being that real. Holla at you, yo. What's up, baby?
So what I was trying to say was, what exactly is a Negro? Move,